What's up, everybody? Today we are on Set Life. I'm your host, Hozana Arceri. We're going to be interviewing Stevie Card. We're so glad to have you today. Let's hop into it.
Glad to be here.
You're watching Set Life Season 4.
So, Stevie, you've done all kinds of cool stuff in production. I think we've worked on production together a lot of times. You've done some crazy stuff out in LA and even outside of the States, which I think is really cool. But man, from top to bottom, like you've done, I think from A to Z in production for the most part. It's producing, you've done co-producing, a little bit of directing even at times. I'm sure PA work, everybody's done some PA work. Even some, you really thrive actually now that I've done some production with you in prop like creation, direction of props, like coordination of prop. I mean, anything to do with props, you're like just really good at that.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about just kind of like where that comes from. Where some of the creativity in that lane goes.
Yeah. So when I first moved to LA, I actually had no ambition to be in film. It was sort of something that found me. I was working at Apple at the time, and one of my customers happened to be a prop master / production designer. And so I got to talking to her and just kind of threw the bread out, just like, hey, if you ever wanted someone, that sounds really interesting. I'd love to try it. And so she ended up giving me my first job in production design.
Where you started.
Yeah, art department is where I started. It was really rough work, which is why I didn't stay in it. And I'm not the most handy. Like on the project we were working on, I injured myself countlessly, and it was worth it. But it wasn't quite the right fit. But I did love it, and I learned a lot from it. And I'm a big being able to communicate with people on their terms is really important if you want things to flow well. Yeah. So
and you do a really good job of it too. Like, I think there's a lot of people who, when it comes to props on a set, a lot of times if they're in the wrong side, it's like, let me just get whatever I can get that looks good enough.
Sure.
Versus like, no, I want this to look a certain way. Like even the one we were on, I think the set was, we needed this rope to look old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know how we do that because it's not old. It's brand new rope.
Right.
And I'm looking over and you're over there with different color spray paints.
Yeah.
You're throwing dirt and you're mixing glue and mud. And all.
Yeah.
I would have never gone there to think of that.
Yeah.
So like, how many of those things do you feel like you learned by just doing it? Did you know to do some of that on that set that day? Like, walk me through that. Yeah,
I mean, I think I do pay a lot of attention to like art departments. I follow a lot of prop masters on sets just because I do interact with a lot of indie producers, and I do kind of consult in a way for my friends who I believe in and want to succeed. And so I like to have that knowledge. I'm kind of a knowledge person. I just love having that encyclopedia in the back of my head just in case I need it, because I'm of the belief that I might need it. And so some of it is just stuff you collect over time. I mean, you'd be surprised, like being on set. Like, I mean, my first job ever, they handed me a rake and we were doing a music video for this band called Wallows, which is really hilarious. They actually have a BTS video of their song. What is it called? Remember When?
Yeah.
And I'm in the BTS because I was brand new. I was a PA. I had no idea I wasn't supposed to be at Village. So I just was there. And so it was a really funny thing. But they handed me a rake and was like, this ground that we stomped all over, we want you to rake it so it's upright again.
Yeah, make it look nice.
Right. Well, grass doesn't really come back when you stomp all over it. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, this is interesting. But you learn to kind of roll with the punches. That's just what you have to do to survive in this industry.
It's true.
It is literally a sink or swim thing. And so every job I've ever had, because I didn't go to college, I didn't prepare for this in any way. I just happened to get someone to give me a chance, and I mean, they just threw me in the deep end, and they were just like, you'll get it, which it was rough, and you make a lot of mistakes that way. But even the people I've worked with who've gone to college, like, you still end up having to make those same mistakes because you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And being on a functional set where stuff is actively happening, it's a different it's just a different thing.
I think that's the stigma too, like kind of in our industry is whether you went to college or not, it's this assumption when you get on a set, I have to know everything.
Oh yeah.
But the funniest part is like pretty much everyone there at some point in their career of getting in the production world has known nothing. And
Correct.
they're on the same kind of set knowing nothing at when you first started, when I first started. Like
Totally.
there's always, I think when you go through the room from top to bottom, above the line, below the line, production crew, they've all had that moment
Totally.
of like, I am in way over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. How do I get this done? That guy just asked me to Hollywood something. I'm not an actor. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like we've all been there.
Totally.
And so I think like where you're kind of going at is understanding of like, okay, maybe you're like, if you're speaking to a young person in the film industry and they're feeling that, they're like, how do I get started? What do I do? I'm on set. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, it's okay. There's grace. I think anyone and everyone on most production sets, the good ones will tell you, we'll give you some grace. Like just ask for help.
Totally.
You know, I don't know what a C47 or what's a clothespin.
Yes.
It's okay. You can ask. You know what I'm saying? So like,
totally.
do you feel like you had some of that coming up? There's people you maybe like, hey, you know what? You're in my corner. You're not as much in my corner. Like walk me through some of that.
I definitely had some really great bosses. I also had some really interesting bosses.
Yeah.
The first few definitely weren't so helpful. There is this kind of like, especially in LA, there is this very no nonsense, like, hey, you either get it and you figure out what you need to know, or too bad, so sad. Yeah. Like it really is a dog eat dog world out there. You know, it's not for the faint of heart. And I'm really grateful that I've had that experience, because I do have a lot more grace for people, as long as you're showing me that you actively are trying to learn and you're not just here to like, I've definitely interacted with people who like are trying to grab pictures and like definitely not being professional. Like, you don't understand, totally fine. Not being professional is something else, you know, and
that's
so
different things for sure.
Totally. And I've definitely had a really great spectrum of working with people who've done it all. But I was really fortunate to work with a wonderful producer. He actually gave me my first opportunity to be an office PA. And it was that experience that really opened up the opportunity for me to entertain producing. And I liked it because I got to be in really close proximity to the creativity, but also I was really just overseeing. And there's a lot of perks that come with being a producer, is the truth. Like I wasn't hauling heavy stuff. I wasn't doing lockups, and like it's super silly, but that was like, oh man, this is awesome. I just have to do paperwork. That's great. Like, let me just do this. And it was a great fit for me. And so I learned a lot from him, and he was wonderful. He always like allowed me to ask questions. And when there was an opportunity for me to learn, he really spoke into me, and he was very gracious. Like
that's super
I've made a lot of mistakes, and he totally like, no big deal. It happens. There was one time one of the executive producers on a themed entertainment project we were working on together. Again, I've literally touched so many random things. We were doing a museum theater thing for something in Detroit, and I made the mistake of not ordering a shirt for an important person because they didn't have like the right size. And so I don't know. I did an audible for no reason. Like I made an audible choice. It was so dumb. She was so mad. Like so mad. Like, and I felt so terrible because obviously it wasn't on purpose. So I called Steven, who was in Michigan at the time while I was in LA. Wow. And he was just like, it's all good. Just order the right shirts. No big deal. Yeah. That was so important for me, because in those moments when you're getting scolded or berated, which like really happens a lot, it just reinforced that, okay, it's fine. I'm human, made a mistake, wasn't thinking through. And then you roll and you keep going. And so I was really fortunate to have more of those bosses than not.
Well, in the part two that I hear is that you're working hard. Yeah. You know, I think at the end of the day, like a coachable hard worker is better than somebody who's very talented that's not coachable, you know? Yeah.
Well, and the truth is, like, I learned really early on. Again, I was very blessed to be around great leaders. Even like growing up in like youth, I was able to be surrounded by people who really called out the leadership ability in me really young. And so I was taught from a very young age of like 16, 17, to be teachable and to glean as much wisdom as possible. So any opportunity that I had to be around someone who was smarter than me, more experienced than me, if I had their ear and they seemed to like me, I would be asking them questions like, hey, how did you get here? Hey, what, like, I can't think of a question right now, but just like, what is the most important thing for me to be learning? I got into the habit of like, after a production had wrapped, I would go to my executive producer, my production supervisor, and be like, hey, was there anything I could have done better?
Yeah, that's cool.
And that was just a gut instinct that I had from all the years of leadership training that I had. And it served me really well. And I was very grateful.
Well, it shows initiative too. I think like that's another one in our industry that that's taking time out of off set time. You know, like if we're talking about time is money on production, it's like, well, hey, that's after hours. We're already wrapped.
Totally.
And you're still going out of your way to try and like learn something or grow or get better. You know, it's there's a term for it in sports. It's like, I'm just always in front of coach, whether I'm taking BP or he's talking to a fan, like I'm just around coach. Yeah. You know, it's because I want to be able to be used. Totally. And I think that goes a long way for people like us in the production world, whether you're a PA or an experienced director, producer, DP, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like there's always a smarter, better, talented person than you in this industry. And the sooner you can realize that, the sooner you'll start finding out answers to questions and growing in areas you want to grow in. Like, I mean, you talking about some of those experiences and you're over here doing producing, you know, like I had you produce on one of my films is super awesome to have. Cause you are that like you will see that stuff in paper that I won't see, and you're going to stay on point and you're going to be able to like hit the nail on the head for structure, which is where a lot of the creative actually sometimes lacks. You know, like I'm all I'm worried about is wanting to light it and look good. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, we did skip that. We did go there. We need to go back. Right. Yeah. So you've actually been on some pretty cool stuff as a producer, co-producer, whatever you want to call it now, but like you did some stuff out of country. You were in Budapest and Italy for a TV series, was it?
Yeah. So I was working on a streaming series about Merlin out in Budapest and Italy. I spent like
Merlin, like the magician, like Merlin.
Yeah.
Merlin?
So it's that one. Okay. It was a really interesting take. So it was based off the books by Stephen Lawhead, who is actually a believer. He's a Christian. And so his take on Merlin was very interesting. It wasn't like it was more like Tolkien. So it wasn't like throwing Christianity in your face or anything like that. But it was a really interesting, like just a different take of Merlin than I've ever seen. And so I was really compelled by it. I actually almost turned down the opportunity because I just wasn't sure if I wanted to like be gone that long, and I was trying to work on my own writing and different other things. But I really felt the prompting to go, and my parents were really, and my family were really encouraging about like just taking the risk. And so lived out in Nashville for 6 months while we were in the writer's room developing the series, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about writing. It really, like, honestly, it shaped so much of the way that I think and process story now, because I'm really thinking of it in a systematic way.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't take anything away from me personally, though. It like understanding the like mechanics actually is sort of a puzzler in itself for me. So it scratches an itch. Yeah. And then we went overseas, and like I said, spent 3 months in Italy. That was really interesting. We were shooting out in Abruzzo. Beautiful. Wow. Like, I mean, I've never seen a more beautiful place. It's definitely rough. I did get tired of pasta. You'd be surprised. Wonderful people though. Budapest really won my heart. Beautiful city, super clean. So many wonderful people I met, so many talented people. I learned so much from our crew. Yeah. Because we're talking about crew who's worked with Robert Deakins, crew that was on Dune and Blade Runner, and like also props. I spent a lot of time with props, not ironically. And it always comes back to props, doesn't it? And I spent a lot of time like problem solving, because there would be things like, oh, we didn't have a goat for the goat sacrifice that day. Yeah. That is a real conversation that I had to have. And so it was like, cool, how do we solve that problem on the fly? We have a white fur pelt thing, and we have blood. Yeah. And so it was a really interesting thing having to like make, as a producer, which way less pressure in that particular scenario, because if things go wrong, you know, it's not me who's in charge of it, but actively trying to help my props, my props, and you know, again, problem solving in the moment. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of like, what is my job? Like, what is
wearing a lot of hats, it
this?
sounded like.
Yeah. And like I was partly helping our continuity, our scripty. It's just like, oh no, and like the drama.
Yeah.
Like, we forgot the crown thing. Like, why is there no crown? And so it was a really interesting experience, like following through from development, like from we all read this book and now we have to adapt it. And so I'm the last person to criticize adaptations because I understand how freaking hard it is. You're talking about like 1,200, 2,400 pages, and like how do you pick the most important pages to film? So as long as people aren't going like off the reservation, I have a lot of empathy for adaptations now, just having done even a little bit of it. But yeah, I mean, I learned a ton about story and producing just from my crew. And like, I think you said this in one of your previous podcasts. But like, you really learn from everyone on set.
Yes.
Not just the person above you. Like, you have no idea who that person is or what their experience is. And like, there is no hierarchy in film, in my opinion. Like, I mean, there is in a literal sense, but for me, I think I found there's so much more when we're allowing people a seat at the table to do what they do well. And I've seen the effects of not doing that. When one person tries to take like all of the creative liberty and you cut people down and don't allow them to do what they are trained to do and what they've been doing for X amount of years, it only hurts the production. It doesn't help, and so
it's true.
I have a lot of very strong opinions about the collaborability of film. I think it's so important. And like picking the right people to work alongside you. You have to trust the person next to you. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like,
it just makes it, like you said, it just pulls out the best in each other. When you're putting somebody in a role and you say, hey, I'm trusting you with this, just you trusting somebody with something on production, I think is enough for them to be like, oh, I have all the backing I need. They trusted me for this. And I think it doesn't just flip flop in both ways in the sense of like, you're inexperienced, I'm putting you in an experienced spot. I think there's the humbleness in production that'll humble you real fast of like, hey, you're experienced, but I'm putting you in this spot.
Totally.
And if that's also trusting too, I think, because you can say, hey, I know you're the best director around, but I already have a director. I need you to be here because that's the spot I need, whether you're accepting it or not, that's on them. But I think it's just as trusting to say that I can throw you in that position, like you're the Swiss Army knife person. And that sounds kind of like where you're at in production. You can do a lot of different things, from producing to props to directing, even writing, like we were talking a little bit off camera. You're doing some writing right now currently. It's not just writing for like film stuff, but you're actually writing some articles and blogs on a really cool show that's trending right now. I go into a little bit of that.
Sure. So I've been working on some script writing. I've been working on that stuff for a long time. There's a couple projects that I'm trying to like pull out of my brain. But recently I've been watching a lot of Severance. Who hasn't been? Really, it feels like such a minority. And so I kind of switched lanes a little bit just in the last few weeks, just to kind of explore the space. Because I was making some commentary on social media and people were responding to it. The 500 characters just wasn't doing it justice. And at a certain point, it's like,
not with that show.
It's like I've written 12, like one of 12 thread things or whatever posts.
That's like one trip down the hallway for that show.
Seriously. And so I was like, this format is not, I need longer. And so I revisited Medium, which I'd used in the past, but no one was really like paying attention to what I was writing. So I sort of put it down. So when everyone was theorizing, like, what are the goats? What is this stuff? Like, what does it mean? And I decided I would take a stab at it and just kind of like do more character analysis. I don't do theories because, like, honestly, Dan Erickson is probably like way smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff. Like, this isn't my genre. And so puzzle box stuff, like, I'm not going to guess. I'm going to get through it and be like, the goats were just goats.
They were very nice props.
They were very, very nice props. And so I've been writing a lot of character analysis and really trying to just give language to people who want it. Like why narratives move the way they move. Like why do characters make the choices that they make? And why does it feel weird when sometimes we see in a show a character depart from their character arc? That's, you know, where we talk about like characters acting out of character.
Yeah.
We feel it. The audience feels it. They might not have the language to describe what's happening, but when you have a character who's moving a certain way and then all of a sudden they do something that just fully breaks that arc we're on, because we're very familiar with character arcs, like even instinctively, we are we're a media consuming generation. And so even again, if we don't have the verbiage to like say, oh, something's weird about that, and
you still know
why,
recognize it,
and then you disconnect with the audience that way. And so there is a difference between subverting an expectation and that still reaches catharsis for people versus like, oh, we're just departing. This character is just doing what it wants to do or whatever. And so it's been really fun to kind of unpack that in sort of this consumer friendly way. And I've had a lot of really positive responses from people of like, wow, I feel like I'm watching the show differently.
Wow.
Because I have a different language to like a different lens to look at this through. And so my basic premise, you know, and people will at me, I'm sure. The show is an analogy about what we do when we are confronted with difficulty, with trauma. And so it's like, do we pick what is emotionally convenient? And we do. Like, we don't have a chip in our brain necessarily, but we do have a chip in our pocket, you know? And so we are disassociating in different ways. We are creating different personas in different ways to escape whatever reality exists in our actual life.
So true, actually. Yeah.
And so when I'm watching this show, I'm thinking, man, like, oh no, like Mark has to go through this. He has to go through this in a very specific way because he hasn't learned the lesson, which, not trying to spoil anything, he isn't learning the lesson. So our Audi Mark isn't learning the lesson. And so when people are frustrated that he's not making the ending that they want to happen isn't happening, is because he hasn't learned the lesson. And that's the point of story. Story is not about telling people how your character gets to what they want. It's a character wanting something and getting what they need.
That's good.
And that's life.
And
the reason we need it and the reason we resonate so much with it, and the reason there's a Greek, I think it was Aristotle, but he said tragedy is how we reach catharsis. It's like what we learn out of tragedy that we reach catharsis. And so I think that story at its best is poking those places where we, myself included, like I'm telling you, before Severance, I would have looked at the show and been like, this looks really sad and tragic. I'm going to pass because I don't want to interact with something that's going to make me confront like, oh man, that makes me feel bad. Like, oh, I feel sad for these
brings
characters.
that back up in you.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, oh, all those things come flooding back.
It's like The Office on repeat, or like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Those are my go-to shows. Like, let me numb myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So this was a really different experience for me. Like, I was opening myself up personally to like the uncomfortability of the premise of like, oh man, like, am I disassociating? Am I disconnecting because it's not comfortable? And so anyway, it became this really like personal thing for me. And it was really nice to share with people. And I think art is so wonderful that it gives us this access point to be able to talk to people about like, hey, or that shared trauma or that thing that happened with that character. Like, tell me more about why you responded that way. Yeah. It's just been such an interesting, very interesting thing. And I was telling,
it's so cool that you can pull that out too. I mean, like, and again, it's everyone's watching that show, and I feel like everyone's getting something different out of that one. It's just one of those shows. Like,
100%.
You're gonna watch the same episode 5 times and get something new. But I think like it's so cool how you're finding that there's just a deeper vein in that, you know. And I'd be super intrigued to hear, you know, like I'd love to send this chunk to Ben Stone and be like, hey, were you thinking this? Was this kind of like where you were going? Because we have somebody who went there and it super sounds about right.
You know, you never know. I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and we were chatting about Severance as usual. And I was jokingly telling him, like I would love to shake Dan Erickson's hand because his show broke my brain.
Mm.
Like I actually couldn't overthink it.
Yeah.
Like they had fully overthought it for me. And there was no way I was going to be able to like dig into the details enough to figure out what was happening on a plot level.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it forced me to take a step back as a writer and be like, okay, I'm not going to get that, put that away. And I started analyzing the actual characters, and all of a sudden it was like, I understood how to write. It was so weird.
That's cool.
Because I knew how to write before, but I was getting lost in the plot, even with like, I'm working on, trying to work on this Esther, show thing that I have in my head. And I was getting lost in the plot of like, oh, maybe this thing happens. And, the Greeks were at war with the Persians and like all of the fluff around my characters. And then missing what was important.
Right.
Like, what is Esther doing?
Yeah.
Where's her agency? What does she want? Why can't she get it? Like, these are the actual important questions. And because of this show, I finally understood. And that's so funny because I don't, I'm not the one to be like, oh my gosh, this show changed my life. I'm not that person. But really, like as an artist, as a filmmaker, I really think it flipped a switch in my brain where I could just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And like look at the thing that really was important to the story. And like I fully guessed the finale twist because I stopped looking at the and I was shocked at myself because I totally thought I was going to be wrong.
That one wasn't an easy one to guess or even track on. Like I didn't know it was going to go there, and I'd like to think I had a pretty good idea.
Yeah, no, totally.
But everything I'm hearing you say is just so cool because what I'm interpreting that as, man, your character development matters.
Oh, totally.
You can have a great story, but like if your character development is not there, you're just missing half the story, really.
Totally.
Like, and all the stuff we've produced or done stuff together, it's like, it does matter a lot. Like the recent project we worked on was a short film, and it's cool because now I'm going back and saying, wait, for episodes, this, and this, I need to fix some stuff because there wasn't enough of that there. There wasn't enough character development, and I'm learning that. But it's so cool to see your take on that on a show that everybody's watching.
Yeah.
That they're wondering, why am I so gripping? Why am I so attached to this? There's been so many shows over the years, that we've all bought into that have been really good or really bad, but like there's just something on this one.
Yeah.
But everything I'm hearing you say is just they killed it on character development.
Totally.
Great plot, great story.
Yeah.
But like you are wanting to live life with those characters.
Oh,
you
totally.
relate to those characters.
And what I would also actually add to that is like, there is this thing called new literalism, and it is definitely something we see a lot in film and in culture right now, social media, and it really is spoon feeding plot to our audience. And what Severance does not do is that.
Nope.
It lets you be uncomfortable with Helena. It lets you be uncomfortable with Harmony. It lets you live in the tension of their goodness and their badness. It doesn't actually define them as villains.
You just started liking them. Now I'm like, I can't stand them.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so funny because like a lot of people get really, really mad at me online because I defend Helena because I think there's more to her than what we're looking at. And so it is a very big point of contention because, in my opinion, of new literalism, they're expecting a cartoon villain. They're expecting a character with one dimension. She's bad because she was born into a bad family and she has witnessed bad things. Well, first of all, humans are not that simple.
Yeah.
And like these kinds of villains should make us question our own ability, because like what is the question they're posing with Harmony and Helena really, except to say like, why do people with the potential for goodness stand by in the face of injustice? Why? You see that Helena's not happy.
Yeah.
You see that she hates her life. I have a whole thing about that I won't get into, but like the question isn't whether they're good or bad.
Yeah.
The question is why are they not responding to the injustice?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really great psychology answers to that question.
Sure.
That I would love for people to dig a little deeper, because it is a question about ourselves. It's not really a question about them.
So good.
That is what art is for. Art is supposed to make us question our own morality, our own, where do I stand in this?
Yeah.
And it's much more nuanced than that. We're just so accustomed to like the slapstick comedy of scrolling on endless, social media platforms that we're not actually having the opportunity to stop and reflect on anything we're watching.
It's true. It's all going too fast.
Totally. And so what I actually loved, and I know lots of people like waited to watch it. I know you're one of them, and that's totally wonderful. Yeah. I love that for you. But what I enjoyed about watching the slow drip release this time around for me is I have a very ADHD personality, so I will binge it. I will binge it.
Yeah.
But it forced me to delay my gratification, and it made me process.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciated that is that we don't have as many spaces for that in culture, and not very many shows are actually asking profound enough questions for people to think about it. Like, I'm not watching White Lotus, but like everything that I've heard about it is just like people watch it and then they turn it off and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. And so Severance really occupies this unique space, I think, where it is causing people to reflect. Sometimes their reflection just isn't like, we haven't given culture enough tools for like what is good reflection.
Yeah.
And to like cap off my big rant, because I will go off on a tangent. I think it's very, very interesting just because, people don't pay attention to the medium of film. Like film actually requires this interlocking mechanism. Chekhov's gun. If you see a gun, that gun better go off. That is the rule. It's a rule for a reason. And film has operated this way since it began. Doesn't mean you can't subvert the expectation, but you're leaving an empty space where your audience is going to be like, why'd you show me a gun?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, why did you even show me that?
It's like your subconscious viewing of the show.
Totally.
I think, yeah.
And so like when I talk about characters like Helena and when I talk about characters like Harmony, I'm like, what is the text saying? Do you know that? Do you know that Helena knows this? Or are you just assuming?
Right.
And so we are often projecting what we believe onto the characters, which you cannot do. This is not a song.
Which is why everybody can have a different view of a show.
Totally.
They can have a different opinion of a character.
Yeah, totally. And I think like there obviously is a space, because that's what art is for that reflection. But I think too, like, there is a way of honestly interpreting, and then there's a way of projecting. So it's a little bit different of like, yes, we can be like, oh, we can take a moral thing out of it. It's like, this is bad. We don't want to do that. Like, we can have that moral conversation. But when it comes to character arcs and like actual exegesis of like, oh man, why did that character do that? Or, there are some rules. It is loose. There's like, it's a very loose rule, but and obviously they intentionally leave a lot to the audience interpretation. But there is also an honest way of being like, is Miss Wang actually Gemma and Mark's daughter? Probably not. Could be, but that would be like, we're into the real sci-fi of like,
went out there, you got a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah, it's like, how did she go? Like, they've only been married for 4 years, so like, how do you math that? You just don't. And so there is a little bit of story logic that, hey, the writers are going to abide by it whether you want to or not. I'm just trying to save people some heartache when they're like, why didn't that happen? Well, because the characters are locked in into a narrative structure that, unless Dan Erickson is feeling really risky, is not gonna, they're not reinventing the wheel, is so what I'm taking a long time to say. Is just
it's good. I think it's really cool because it gives you, if you're in the industry, it's cool. And like a lot of what you're saying is like, oh yeah, that's so new to me, hearing a lot of this. It's like, wow, there's so much more I need to learn, in this amazing industry we call film. And then there's people who are watch this who will be like, I'm not in that, but like that gave me a whole new layer of viewing things. So like, thank you for sharing all that, because it was so good. It was good deep, like really good deep to listen to.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So if somebody wants to find what you've been writing, where do they go to look for that? Just real quick.
Really, you could go to, like, you follow me on Instagram.
What's your Instagram handle?
Stevie F Card.
Got it. Okay.
And then I'm on Medium as well. It's Stevie Card, like medium.com/steviecard.tv.
Okay,
and cool. I'm doing a lot of film analysis. I'm going to try and do more and explore some different genres. I just got to get Severance out of my head, you know.
So if somebody were to also want to hire you for work, let's say like I need a producer, need props, where are they going to reach out to you on that?
You can go to steviecard.com.
Okay, cool. Stevie, it's been a blast having you on set.
Likewise.
It's been so fun diving deep into, I'm just going to call it film theory in a story-driven way. I mean, that's really like the simplistic way to say that, because that's really what it was today. And it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed having you. Look forward to having you some more here at For the One Studio. If you have not been to For the One Studio, this is the place to be. We've done numerous things at this place, from Studio 1, Studio 2. Honestly, if you're in Houston and you haven't been here, come check it out. It's one of the nicest, I'm going to say that very boldly, nicest studios you can shoot in as a filmmaker. So come check us out. But until next time, this is For the One Set Life. We'll catch you on the next one.